Well, speaking of nations dropping out from the system, uh, Ecuador, I believe, could be El Salvador. I get those two countries confused all the time. But they made Bitcoin their national currency.
El Salvador.
Yeah, El Salvador, and it hasn't really been going too well, has it?
I guess it depends on perspective. So they're still thinking in terms of they don't have a circular economy, I would say, in blockchain yet. And so anytime you don't have a circular economy in blockchain native, you're going to be somewhat hamstrung because you're relying on, flipping back and forth to fiat protocols and all sorts of challenges from logistics and resource sharing and all that sort of stuff. So if you're kind of a landlocked nation and you still need things from other nations, then you're having to interact with the legacy world, and that creates its own problems.
Yeah, isn't it going to create problems? Isn't that always going to be a problem though?
It is.
Unless you can just go bang and switch over, then there's going to be a period when you're transacting between the two systems.
Yeah,
it's just really, it's not friction free at all.
That's right.
It's worse than either one on its own by a lot. And given the default is what we've got, and this is worse than either that or all Bitcoin, then it's just going to be, I think it's going to be difficult to transition.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be a long and difficult transition without a doubt. And I think that's where folks won't make that transition unless they truly see the need to, and unless they are truly tired of being manipulated by the old system.
But it's interesting because I don't see actually how it can be a long transition. It seems like it would have to happen kind of all at once. There'd have to be a tipping point at some point. So it might take a long time to get to the tipping point. But unless it goes, suddenly we're all doing crypto. And I do think you'd need crypto to be just better in a lot of ways than it is for that to really happen. It just has to be more convenient than it is.
Yeah.
There's got to be a better transaction medium. There's got to be a better store of value. And I think there's a lot of problems to be figured out in crypto before you even could have a tipping point. And even when it gets to the point when you could have a tipping point, you then need something really disastrous to happen. Like there's been a lot of inflation recently, but I think you'd need to be worse than that even really you need both something worse than that and a much better crypto space for there to be a tipping point. But once that happens, it can all change in a month. But
yeah, I think that's fair. I think, folks are certainly fearful of taking responsibility of their own, financial situation. And the onboarding is not, simplified. It's not secure in most cases. People end up in all sorts of rugged projects. They don't necessarily understand how marketing works, how VC money works, how, essentially they're flipping one token into another just to raise fiat, right? So some folks confuse what crypto is. And that's going to be really hard to break through. And then to your point, like the user interface is not simple in most cases. So folks are like, I'm not going to take that effort unless I'm forced to, unless I see a need that I have to in order to live my life the way that I want. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a lot to solve before this reaches that tipping point.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of friction in crypto, especially just transacting and having a wallet. But I wonder if these problems could be addressed with a different user interface, which is more, I guess, smooth. But I think Coinbase probably has the best user interface. And if they haven't been able to solve the problem, I don't know how else you can probably approach it.
I mean, but they're not trying to solve the problem. They're just trying to be a crypto bank. So, I mean, that's been pretty clear since their partnership with Circle and creating the Center Foundation and USDC and all that sort of stuff. They're creating tokenized dollars, and that's their primary, means and methods to. They see the world as like tokenizing, the stock market as an innovation that can be traded 24/7 and create more efficient markets and all that sort of stuff. That has nothing to do with, it does have to do with crypto, but not the version that I believe Satoshi had intended for us.
Right. The problem is like being decentralized is so hard. You know, you have to connect to a wallet and then connect to this decentralized platform. Hope it works, right? And it's super slow because of like all the other transactions that are happening. You kind of have to wait your turn for your transaction to go through. Until we can figure out a more efficient way to deal with decentralized applications, I don't know.
I would tell you the decentralization is hard because of the people involved as well, right? So where there's no hierarchy, where people don't know exactly like how to form consensus among, distributed groups of communities. And all this tribalism and maximalism comes into play that is like the antithesis of decentralization, right? They're not exactly sure how to cooperate and move forward with something that's meaningful without some sort of incentive structure. And so I think having been involved in a number of blockchain projects that are truly decentralized, that's kind of the core and common challenge that they face. And for the most part, they're not recognized in the marketplace as being, significant or necessary. And so they don't receive funding because there's no way to actually make money in the process, right? And quite frankly, most of crypto is about making money without realizing that crypto is intended to be the money. So this whole system has gotten sort of flipped upside down, and it's about making money at this point. Like I'm realist about that.
You have a take on that, Andy, as far as like crypto and making money? Is there any way around it?
I mean, to be honest, my interest in crypto has been kind of declining for probably 8 years now. It's from when I first heard about Bitcoin in shortly after it. Actually, no, it was a couple of years after it started, but like 2011, something like that. Seemed so exciting. The theory of it seemed so exciting, and then the price started doing all its stuff, and you go, okay, well, this is interesting, and then there's just the more time I've spent thinking about it since, it's exactly what kind of Johnny pinpoints. It's basically the incentives and the things that grow and can be kind of really pushed because there's some sort of incentive structure that works for them to be pushed, are exactly the things that are the worst things.
Yep.
For the ecosystem as a whole. So if the really good, pure, decentralized monies tend to stay small or fail altogether, or and the total shit that's just a scam is has so much because it's a scam, it's all profit, so you can pour that into marketing, then basically that grows until people figure out that these things are basically a scam. And then either nothing grows, or basically, the way I see it is kind of like the whole thing is there's like a purist underground that's going to be maintained for a very, very long time and maybe build itself into, well, yes, you're doing the Lord's work there, but I think you've got a hard road in front of you.
It's not a profitable one, I can assure you.
And then the thing is, it may stay not profitable even if you sort of win. Like even when, sometime in who knows how long from now, this does reach a tipping point, you'll have put in all this effort and, there'll be, people will write books about you, but I don't think you'll make a fortune out of it.
That's right. And it's not for this generation. I think I've come to that realization over the last year.
How do you feel about it? Is that like a depressing thought, or do you like the being sort of the underdog who plugs away and is one day vindicated? You're crucified in your lifetime, and statues of you everywhere in 1,000 years.
Yeah, no, nothing like that. I have zero delusions of grandeur that large. I would tell you, sure, delusions of grandeur, but it's one of those things where if I've got the capacity, if I feel like the need is still there, I'll do what I can when I can, in all the ways that I can. Right? It's like the John Wesley idea of Christianity, right? As much good as I can for as long as I can, in all the ways that I can, right? And if it amounts to something, then great. But my hope is that we don't, kind of devolve into this CBDC social credit system worldwide that I see coming. And the only way I know that won't happen is if there's alternative systems.
Yeah, that's the other way. There's literally I think the only government announcement that would make me take to the streets and start lighting things on fire would be, hey, CBDCs coming soon.
Yeah, yeah, I think the generation thing is super on point. Is I don't know, this generation, they're so, I guess because they got brought up in the world on iPads and stuff, like they are so legalistic, especially with the recent event that happened this week with Power World, which is this new game that got released. And all these kids are like trying to sue Power World on behalf of Nintendo. Like, why are you doing a corporation's job? I don't understand. I don't understand how that works. But they're just really passionate about protecting Pokemon's IP and not allowing Pokemon to be ripped off by a different group. But why do you care? Like, how do you benefit from that? Yeah, the whole generation on this really, really weird.
Yeah, I mean, there's something in that, but I think, we can get probably too excited about how useless the current generation is, because that's been kind of the going opinion forever. But sometimes, I do think it's, the incentives fall in a certain way, and, you need to be pretty extraordinary to go against them, I would say. So we don't have a generation of wild, extraordinary geniuses that are brave and stick their necks out, but we never did.
That's true. Yeah, they typically evolve over time as they wake up to the reality they find themselves. And if they choose, to your point, to kind of stand up to it, and then find their power and their voice, they can do some cool stuff. I've got two amazing children that I'm excited for, and they've got some great friends that I've got to know over time. And I know it's a very small example, but I'm hoping that's true everywhere.
Yeah.
Let's hope.
And then there's another issue going on in crypto, major issue, where Gary Gensler, SEC chief, he's just going after every single crypto project on the earth, except BlackRock, of course. So he's going after Coinbase, he's going after Ripple, he's going after Binance. And you think it's what he says is to protect retail investors, but it seems like there's something more nefarious going on, especially since he has an interest in the FedNow currency, which is supposed to be the way that banks get up to date, not have to take 3 days in order to process a transaction.
I mean,
one quick question, right? Britain's had, it doesn't take 3 days to process a transaction for ages. It's been instant here forever. Not forever, but 20 years or something. Like, as long as I've been an adult and really like transacting, it's been straight away. That's person to person, across different banks, between banks, all of that. I mean, that seems, I'm not exactly sure how they do it, but it seems like it oughtn't be rocket science. I mean, it's just data. As soon as you got modems, you're basically sorted, right? So I don't think you need any special new technology to make that happen.
Well, it comes down to fractional reserve banking here in the U.S. And
we've got that too, though.
I'm not sure you have it to the same extent that our network of FDIC banks do. And it's all about liquidity. And it's interesting because it kind of parallels what we're seeing in DeFi in the blockchain space, and some of these exchanges ended up failing because they were engaging in fractional reserve banking but did not have instant access to liquidity in order to balance the markets and all that sort of stuff. And ultimately, that's what they're trying to accomplish. But to your point, the infrastructure they're using here in the United States is like COBOL programming, and I'm not even exaggerating, Andy.
Oh, yeah.
That it's not exactly what we would say modern, and that's where I'm interested in hear from you, maybe a little bit later, regarding some of these semi-autonomous artificial intelligence programs that are going to start to exploit all of those old infrastructure projects and how that relates to finance. But the other thing I had a question for you about, and it is somewhat related to BlackRock. Like I don't have a really good understanding of their Aladdin system. I know that it exists. I've dug in a little bit here and there. It's developed over the course of the last 7 years in terms of how it trades markets from a global perspective. But from my knowledge, it's one of the most advanced artificial intelligence programs that exists. And I was curious to understand your perspective on it.
Well, I don't think any of the how it works is public. So
it's definitely not. Yeah.
I would imagine, if I had to guess, I would guess they're pretending to have very, very advanced AI because what they're actually doing is insider trading.
That makes sense.
The best cover for that is the reason we can pull all this stuff off is because we've got these algorithms that know stuff that nobody else knows because it's the most advanced AI. It's like, okay, well, why can't it do anything else then? If you've got all this AI that just does this, that just magically knows about markets, it should be able to, do rocket equations, and it should be able to, you should have a language model on the market, and shouldn't you be, maybe you've nailed video generation or something like that. No, it only does one thing, which you could also do if you had pretty basic AI and a load of basically supposedly Chinese walled knowledge that isn't.
Yeah, no, that makes the most sense. Occam's razor type situation there, where backdoors to politicians across the globe, not to mention CEOs, you end up with Nancy Pelosi times 1,000, right? So there's your Aladdin system.
It just makes so much more sense as a smokescreen for, because basically they've been able to insider trade forever. The just thing is, people will go, well, how did you know to do that? And now they've got a reason.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy.
Very much that.
Like how the American system works. Like everything's just legalized bribery. And
oh, yeah.
I have a hunch that the only reason that the Bitcoin ETF from BlackRock specifically was able to go through was because BlackRock greased some hands, greased some palms, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, it's only because of it's only because of these connections and the way the American system is set up, where just legalized bribery is so prevalent that we're still stuck in the stone age of banking, still waiting 3 days to receive our paychecks, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, but
it's the nature of just having a government generally. You put a load of power to decide things in one place. Some weird stuff's going to happen. It could be loads of bribery. It could be loads of insider stuff. So just the people in the government get rich, like the Soviet Union, and everyone else is screwed. There's some hybrid of that, but yeah, it's a fundamental weak point of anything where of like an ultimate centralization of actual, someone decides what the rules are, and clearly getting at those people is valuable.
Yeah. Well, and with all that ETF, right, it is what the government wants for crypto, right? Like ultimately it essentially destroys the very basis of why it was created, because now you're not bankless, right? You're in a permissioned, fractionalized account that can be revoked at any time, and so that's the version of crypto the government wants, is a speculative asset versus a peer-to-peer permissionless protocol. So I wasn't surprised by it. I think ultimately the marketplace itself is still not representative of its actual value, but I think it's mostly captured at this point until people recognize that the coins themselves might have some actual value in a parallel marketplace someday.
Yeah.